Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Planet Coaster. Today we are working on a Zelda inspired build, and before I go into exactly what I'm doing here on camera, I want to do a little bit of a shout out to Frontier Development, the people that do make Planet Coaster and Elite Dangerous, for providing such a fun event down in Boston. That's where I've been for the past couple days, and it was just wonderful meeting everyone, Sam, Denny, Ed, Bo, and of course the other people of the community that do play this game and love Frontier as much as we do. So, big shout out to them. Great devs, friendly as always, and it's just the coolest thing in the world for me to go to something like that. And, I just wanted to start this episode out shouting out to them just because it was just great fun. So, other than that, of course, as you guys can see, we are making the Temple of Time from Zelda. This is the current Temple of Time from the latest Zelda game that is just released for the Nintendo Switch and the Wii U. And it is a ruined Temple of Time. It's pretty interesting. This is obviously a different look than, say, Ocarina of Time, which is actually the main Zelda game that I'm most familiar with because that's something I played a lot in my youth. This one kind of has the same front facade. I think the back end is a little different, where they keep the Master Sword in that one has a little bit more of a cylinder chamber that goes very high into the skyline. This one, not so much. This is actually a little bit more of an accurate representation of a church/small cathedral, and we will be going through detailing this out. It took a lot of time and dedication to getting some of the proportions right there at the start. You guys get to see that, where we spent the majority of our effort just laying and boxing in the form. And now we are moving on to creating these workable tile assets that we can kind of copy and paste around. I'm not worrying about color quite yet at this stage. I'm worrying more about getting some details. The color doesn't really change anything in the detail phase. It just changes, what they look like per se, not really the proportion or the size and scope of things. And you can see here, at this point, that first tall piece of these 4 thick columns holding up the main front spire is colored, and we are just piecing this around. This is kind of the way we are going to be building this whole structure. We will simply delete the rough outline that we constructed at the beginning and replace that with these upgraded tile sets over time. The rough outline, this is just how I like to build these reconstructions. Some people don't do this, and that's perfectly fine as well. If you're confident enough to just start building and making the tiles and detailing it all out and going from there, you actually will probably build a lot quicker than I do. I'm not that confident, to be honest, in that method for myself, and so that's why I do it this way. I do a lot of kind of these trial and error phases. It doesn't always work out, and sometimes it actually costs me more time than it's worth, but for me, it's kind of my comfort, my safe zone, and what I use to, I guess, progress in a fashion that I want to. Now, the Temple of Time here is old, and it is in ruin. You can see at the beginning stages, we actually kind of roughed up the left side there, and we also are making things more green. I don't quite know the full color palette in the game. The screenshots of the game that I saw on Google were a little grainy and maybe a little bit more old and not quite full HD, but again, doing a 100% accurate recreation, never really my goal. I just more or less want to capture the essence of the building. There's plenty of things wrong with this, and I'm sure you guys could let me know in the comments down below everything that is wrong with it. But I don't have the game myself. I can't really go in and climb this structure and go full detail on this. It's also the time. The time just isn't going to be there. At this point, the front facade of the main spire is basically done. You know, we can detail that out. You can copy and paste details as you go. So when we finish the front, technically we finished all sides of the facade as well. So we'll be copying and pasting that around eventually. Here at this point, we're using this small cube of brick to transform and build the front arches. Cathedrals and things have a lot of layers of these carved stone elements over their doorways and windows, and it just creates all these wonderful looking shadow lines. Cathedrals are probably my favorite structure that mankind have really ever made. You know, they're just wonderful to look at and appreciate just all the work and detail that is put into them. Now, luckily, this block is recolorable, so it's not going to stay that brick orange red color. You know, we will be coloring it that green just so it looks a little bit more aged. And over the main doorway, there is, of course, the main Triforce symbol, and you know, the flat shapes are perfect for making that stand out. A green color again here, just because everything is kind of covered in a layer of moss, mold, age, weathering, and it just looks so much like the game in terms of just from a distance. A lot of the shots that I saw online of people looking at the temple from far away, you know, if you put this on top of a hill, it will look fairly close to it. And also, the cool thing is that we might be able to upload this to the Steam Workshop. It is about around 4,000 pieces, so it's going to be in 2 parts. And those 2 parts will hopefully align easy enough. I'll be putting some markers down. That's what the 2 white blocks are out front are for. They are to help, you know, people align the front facade into the back. A lot of the detail on these structures tend to be on the front, just because that's kind of the main advertisement space for these large cathedral churches. And it is kind of the most iconic thing. Now the sides, of course, are going to have detail in them as well, but they're a little bit more for window space and normal kind of wall decor at that point. We had to make a lot of custom windows for this because the tile set that is in Planet Coaster really isn't meant for quite this large of a scale. And that's because, I mean, like, this tower itself is 8 meters wide, you know. These large, kind of tall, narrow windows are the correct style that we need for them. However, there's just not one that is 4 meters wide and 8 meters tall. I doubt the developers thought that we would need something like that, so why would they make an asset for it? But luckily, Planet Coaster being the game that it is, very versatile, and we are able to custom make a lot of these pieces. I am also adding some plaster elements, you know, just to bring in some color variety that's not really in the game itself. But for me, you know, again, the goal isn't to do 100% of a recreation. It is to make it look close to it and to reference it enough to where people know what it is, but also make it look good in Planet Coaster itself. This is a coaster building game, guys, and I build buildings in it. It's very weird. I was talking to Sam Denny about this a little bit, in the fact that Planet Coaster is just something that's so versatile in terms of its building for a coaster simulation game. It's a little mind-blowing. You know, medieval engineers, you can build a cathedral. In fact, we've done that in the past year and a half or so, and we did it, and it looks good. However, this amount of detail is just unbelievable and staggering on what people can do, you know. And going over the part limit to push this to a good level, I think was something that I really needed to do. It's going to hinder us a little bit, but overall, it's going to turn out pretty cool, I think. So the right spire is pretty much laid out. The left spire is actually ruined and destroyed in this game. And so to do that, simply just make a quick copy of the right side, destroy a good chunk of it, and then you're able to just move that over, and you're able to keep it in that destroyed form. And it does look pretty cool. A lot of these pieces are small enough that it does look like individual bricks kind of breaking off and things. So that is pretty successful, and I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. This is the simple tile set for the sides of the church. They're very simple and clean, you know. They just have a couple arches, a large window on each major wall surface, and some large support columns. And that's about it, you know. Nothing too fancy on these, you know. It reminds me of some churches in England. I'm kind of blanking on the name of them. Maybe the Westminster Abbey Church. I think you guys could probably correct me. I'm probably quoting the wrong one, but it is that kind of layout. It's very simple and clean. There's no cross in this. It's just a straight inline church, kind of with a good front facade. And we can copy and paste these windows all the way around, make it look really cool. Try and cap off the ends. Sadly, we are not going to be able to do the interior of this. That's the one thing Planet Coaster is really hard to do, interiors, just because of part clipping kind of taking up some of that space. And also, this thing was already very high in the part count. And if I were to do a full interior, that would have made it into a 3, possibly a 4 blueprint item, and that's not something that I really want to make. That's a little too complicated for the workshop on breaking it up, and really it can become a pain to copy and paste into your own parks. At this point, we're just redestroying the right side a little bit, getting rid of some of that roof, leaving a whole bunch of that wall left there. And the back side, you know, just have a nice simple half circle back there, and that's just made up of multiple buildings kind of rotated around. The roof is a little bit custom, but you know, if you guys know how to make spires, you guys will know how to make the roof in the back. You know, there's plenty of videos on it. Silverette also has a wonderful video on how to make custom spires, and that's essentially the same method used there. Since we can't do the interior, what I've decided to do is use a whole bunch of trees, shrubs, and bushes to create more of a complete overgrown look. Some of it, of course, you can see down into it, just so you can see some layers of depth in there, but there's going to be a lot of shrubs and trees just overgrown on the structure in general. This is, in the new Zelda game, a very old relic of the past, and really is starting to be reclaimed by nature. So that's why it is partially destroyed, like you're seeing here. To make the roof line a little bit more jagged and interesting, just put some planks along there. They don't have to make complete sense, but you can also put some bushes to add some more greenery spaces as well. So at this point, we're just gonna go ahead to real time. You guys can take a look at it in all its glory and tell me what you think down below. Okay, so here we are with the finished Temple of Time, and it is just looking amazing. I just love this structure. We have tried to make something like this before in Medieval Engineers back in the day. Sadly, that game couldn't handle it, and so here we are turning to the coaster simulation game of 2016 to just make it anyways. It's rather astonishing how well something like this can turn out and just look so beautiful in Planet Coaster. And really, you know, this can be quite the weenie in your park. It can be the centerpiece. It can also be a coaster station. It can be really many things if you just take the time to flesh it out and make it your own. Of course, we have the Cathedral of Light in the background there as well, just as big and impressive. I was a little astonished just from how big this thing is, and I think it's roughly the right size. Again, I'm going off of images, and I don't really have the correct scale for this, so it could be a little bigger than anticipated, but I just love all the detail and the layering that you can get into here. So, you know, between the Triforce symbol up above, the nice arches and supports. Some of the plaster we added to just add some color break, because otherwise it just would look a little too green or too dark and wouldn't have any separation. But it's just really probably currently one of my favorite builds that I worked on. It took all day, so you know it is quite the part count on it of 4,000-ish parts here. So you know, obviously can't split it up into just 2 items. So I have to think of another way to upload this to the Steam Workshop. But it just looks really cool. Now over here on the destroyed section looks great as well. However, you know, I do wish I could do the interior fully. In fact, that might be something we come back to later if I feel like it. But, you know, working 7-ish hours on a project generally kind of makes me burned out and want to move on to something new. But the way this kind of fills in, it just looks really, really nice. And overall, just something that I'm just happy with how it turned out. And I hope you guys are as well, especially fellow Zelda fans such as me. So, what I want to do here to finish this out is I want to show you just real quick how big this thing is. Because if we go over here to the Cathedral of Light, which is a World of Warcraft build that we made, this is actually 12,000 parts. And it is actually about the same size. The spire on the new one's actually a little bigger, but the reason this can save about 3 times as many parts is simply due to the walls not being angled. There's no custom real wall work needed like we needed here in the cathedral. You know, also these spires are all custom built. These spires are not. So that does save on part count a whole bunch. But side by side, very dramatic. You know, one of course being very prestigious, very well kept and active. The other one old, run down, and just showing its age at this point. It's quite the contrast, and probably something that I think, and hopefully you guys do as well, looks pretty cool side by side. So, if you guys enjoy this episode of Planet Coaster, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more creative goodness such as this. You can find all my builds here in playlists on my channel itself. If you are new and you haven't seen them already, go ahead and leave a comment down below on what you guys think, what you want me to build next, and I will see you guys next time.